That's it for us today. Special live at 5 out at Night Eyes 91. Remember, this runs through Halloween.
That's
Admission is $2. You want to come out here and enjoy yourself.
Have a good evening.
Questions about stated positions.
The president claims victory after backing off on the civil rights bill, and Senator Kennedy promises to change his personal behavior.
This is NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw, reporting tonight from NBC News headquarters in New York.
Good evening. The fallout from the Clarence Thomas Anita Hill controversy continues to radiate across the political landscape. The latest effect, it forced a compromise agreement on the long-running civil rights bill, and it helped prompt Senator Kennedy to acknowledge his personal faults. We begin tonight with NBC's John Cochran at the White House, where a defensive President Bush today took questions on the civil rights bill. John?
Tom, the president claims that by hard bargaining, he got a civil rights bill that discourages racial quotas, but there's actually very little evidence that he got much.
The president accepted a deal brokered by Republican Senator Bob Dole, who suggested minor changes in a bill backed by fellow Republican John Danforth and most Democrats.
Today, and I don't think those changes affect the substance of the legislation at all, so it was a very good deal.
What President Bush did get was some rewording that the White House claims makes it harder for minorities and women to sue an employer if job discrimination was unintentional. But Democrats say Bush failed to get tougher language he wanted, so he accepted meaningless changes.
If these few word changes that people are talking about provide the president with a convenient fig leaf to cover this retreat, then that's fine. We accept that.
We didn't cave. We worked out in a spirit of compromise, a negotiated settlement where I can say to the American people, this is not a quota bill.
We gave up nothing of any significance on the quota debate. Our bill never was a quota bill.
But why would the president suddenly be so anxious to work out a deal? Democrats and some White House aides think Bush knew he might not have the votes to sustain a veto. Also, now that sexual harassment is a high-profile issue, it might not be smart to veto a bill enabling women to collect damages for harassment and discrimination. And finally, the David Duke factor. Some Republicans feared that vetoing a civil rights bill would add credibility to charges like this.
The election of David Duke in the first round in Louisiana is the inevitable consequence of the racial politics of the Reagan and Bush administrations.
But today, the president not only accepted the civil rights bill, he also said he could never support David Duke. The president may have lost some white votes today, but moderates in the White House believe he did the right thing, politically and morally. Tom?
Thank you, John. Politics and morals were also on the public agenda of Senator Edward Kennedy today. For the first time, he admitted that his private behavior has hurt his public effectiveness. NBC's Andrea Mitchell tonight.
Battered by public opinion polls, ridiculed by comedians, scorned even by some Senate colleagues, Edward M. Kennedy tried to restore his reputation by acknowledging his personal failures.
And I'm painfully aware that the criticism directed at me in recent months involves far more than honest disagreement with my positions or the usual criticisms from the far right. It also involves the disappointment of friends.
To supporters, he offered this apology.
I recognize my own shortcomings, the faults in the conduct of my private life. I realize that I alone am responsible for them, and I am the one who must confront them.
For his friends, the Kennedy dream has turned into a nightmare. He had tried to overcome the shame of Chappaquiddick through 2 decades of hard work in the Senate. Then Palm Beach, again a tale of drinking, womanizing, tragedy, possible cover-up. For the first time, he was even in trouble back home. One Boston poll had a majority wanting him not to run again. Still, he would not face up to it.
Do you think you have an alcohol problem?
Absolutely not.
The final blow was this month's Senate Judiciary hearings. When it counted most, Kennedy was sidelined by his own personal reputation, vulnerable to pointed attacks on the Senate floor.
If anybody believes that, I know a bridge up in Massachusetts that I'll be happy to sell to them with the help of Senator Kennedy.
humiliated by late-night comedians.
Have you ever tried coming out of the bathroom nude and acting like you didn't know someone was there?
No.
Well, that's too bad, because that works too.
His leadership on the Civil Rights Compromise was the first step back. So was his public apology.
In short, I will continue to fight the good fight.
Under pressure from family and friends, Kennedy has now pledged to confront his problems. If he fails to meet his own challenge, it will be difficult for him to ask for continued public support. Andrea Mitchell, NBC News at the Capitol.
As Nightly News continues tonight, our Friday forum with the economy floundering. What can you expect if you're a white or blue-collar worker? And what about your children?
These are remarkable cars, and I've left all this space to show you why. First, Dodge Spirit and Plymouth Acclaim are the lowest priced 6-passenger cars in the world, even with an airbag and all the goodies you see here. But okay, you want to spruce it up, so you start adding options: air, automatic, 4-speaker stereo. When you're through, you'll find that Spirit and Acclaim, with all this, are still the lowest priced 6-passenger cars on the planet.
Now, drive for the gold with up to $1,000 cash back on select cars.
Which of these fruits, ounce for ounce, has the most vitamins and minerals? That's right. California prune.
Sweet, delicious California prunes. Find out how good they really are.
Campbell's heard your healthy requests.
Low cholesterol.
Less salt.
But lots of taste.
Here's our answer. New Campbell's Healthy Request ready-to-serve soups. All the great taste you want without some things you don't. New Campbell's Healthy Request. And healthy.
The Middle East Peace Conference in Madrid opens next week, and as that deadline approaches, the Israelis and the Palestinians are talking tough. The wonder is that this conference is being held at all. NBC's John Dancy tonight.
Despite all the hardline rhetoric, here is the fact that cannot be ignored. The Palestinian delegation is on its way to Madrid. Members of the Palestinian negotiating team crossed the bridge from the occupied West Bank into Jordan today. They are going to the conference. In Israel, Prime Minister Shamir, who has taken personal charge of the Israeli delegation, named a team made up of hardliners and senior officials. Meanwhile, the principal players were taking to the airwaves to give their spin to the issues. There was Zalman Shoval, the Israeli ambassador to Washington.
We must find a way to live together in that area which two peoples claim. I mean, that's a historical fact.
Yasser Arafat was saying Israel would be talking to the PLO when it meets the Palestinian delegation.
PLO is not an organization. PLO is the identity of the Palestinian people. And every Palestinian, everywhere, is a member in the PLO.
And Secretary of State Baker said the U.S. will accept progress on any front at any time without linking it to a complete and final settlement of all issues. Meanwhile, President Bush was playing down the hardline statements coming from the Palestinians and the Israelis.
What I do not want to do is inadvertently complicate the process.
The U.S. is expecting all sides to make hardline speeches in Madrid to lay out maximum positions. But the important thing is for the opening talks to go off without a walkout, so the talks can move into the second phase, direct negotiation between Israel and its enemies. John Dancy, NBC News, the State Department.
There is joy for a former American hostage tonight and sorrow for one still in captivity in Lebanon. Jesse Turner with his wife and daughter left Germany today for their home in Idaho. He was freed Monday after 4 years and 9 months in captivity. And there were ceremonies in Washington today marking Terry Anderson's birthday. The longest held American hostage will be 44 years old on Sunday. It will be his 7th birthday in captivity.
You've been up in the air for hours. Now you've got to make up the time. Aren't you glad Hertz has a faster, easier way to rent a car? #1 Club Gold. No paperwork, no stopping at counters, nothing to slow you down. You go straight to our Gold parking area, where your car is waiting, ready to go. It's our fastest way to rent a car.
I'm gonna make it.
Call Hertz today for low daily rates on Lincolns with free unlimited mileage.
Hertz, we're America's wheels.
Grandma's got a date. What's a date? That's when you hug someone.
Closeness. You might hesitate if you wore a diaper. So Johnson & Johnson created Serenity Guards. Bladder control protection so advanced, It holds as much as something 5 times its size and stays dry, locking liquid in.
Grandma, are you gonna hug him? Hug me.
Oh. Give yourself hugs for discovering Serenity from Johnson & Johnson.
It's gone. But it isn't.
Vicks introduces an incredible new cough drop.
It's gone, but it isn't.
A cough drop so powerful, it keeps on working even after the drop is gone. It's extra strength Vicks, a new kind of Vicks with twice the Vicks vapor medicine to relieve your cough and help your scratchy throat and stuffy nose feel better, even after the drop is gone. New extra strength Vicks, extra strong to work.
Even after it's gone.
In the hills above Oakland and Berkeley, California, people still are wandering through the nightmare of that devastating firestorm. Oakland especially is feeling it's a tough luck town these days. NBC's George Lewis now.
The full scope of the devastation hits home when you look at it from the air. More than 3,000 houses and apartments leveled, hillsides stripped of all their vegetation. On the ground, people try to figure out how to get on with life.
We're on a roller coaster. One day, we look at it like, well, we'll just come back with a better place, and then sometimes we don't even want to come back. We keep waffling about whether we're going to rebuild or move out.
As if the fire were not enough, there's a new potential problem: soil erosion. This morning, a light drizzle was falling in the area, and forecasters said it could turn into showers by this weekend. That raises the danger of mudslides in areas below the fire. Nature has not been very kind to Oakland in recent years. It was just 2 years ago this month that the major earthquake hit, killing 42 in a freeway collapse. The city is still rebuilding from that disaster and now has to contend with the fire losses.
Hi there.
Councilwoman Marge Gibson Haskell, whose house was destroyed in the fire, predicts her city will come back.
People here have an incredible amount of character and stamina and strength. I think there's a strong pioneer spirit from the 49ers still floating through this community.
Don Bryant and his wife placed 2 pots of fresh flowers on their front porch, the only remaining part of their house.
In a way, it's a shrine. It's our house, and that's what was left, and so celebrate it. And so
Bryant and his neighbors will need all the pioneer spirit they can muster as they face the challenge of starting over. George Lewis, NBC News, Oakland, California.
Another sort of challenge, paying for a college education these days. It's becoming especially a burden for the middle class. Often unable to afford the tuition of the more prestigious schools, many find it difficult to even pay for the less expensive public universities. NBC's Lisa Myers tonight.
When John Mills was accepted at Towson State University in Maryland, it was the proudest day of his parents' lives.
It's the very first in either one of our families. And his mother and I will do whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes turns out to be even more than John and Peggy Mills feared. They discovered that though they barely make ends meet on $50,000 a year, they're too rich to qualify for a penny of federal loans.
What have I done? You know, I don't have $8,000 or $12,000 in the bank here.
So Peggy worked day and night at 2 full-time jobs. They took out a private high-interest loan. That and son John's summer earnings will barely cover the $9,000 needed for his first year. In the last decade, middle-class families have been hit with a double whammy. College costs have soared 35%, 6 times more than family income. But federal grants and loans actually have declined. So many students are having to settle for less. Take Nashim Walele, who was accepted at prestigious Barnard College in New York City, but ended up commuting to Montclair State in New Jersey. The reason? She couldn't get enough financial help.
The importance of a private school like Barnard was to help me to get into medical school in the future.
I think we could be seeing 10 and 15 years down the road the loss of tremendous talent.
The problem is so severe that one Democratic presidential candidate proposes a domestic GI bill.
It means giving every young American the chance to borrow the money necessary to go to college and pay it back.
But that takes money, something the federal government doesn't have. And it won't come in time to help the Mills family. They haven't a clue how they'll come up with all the money for next year. Lisa Myers, NBC News, Washington.
On Wall Street, concerns about the economy pushed the Dow Industrials down in active trading. For the week, the Dow retreated more than 72 points.
The financial report has been brought to you by Merrill Lynch. We're bullish on the future.
As Nancy Walsh saves for her son's education, her savings and those of millions like her are invested in business. When business grows, our nation prospers and becomes more competitive in the world, which could open up a world of opportunities. And who will be there seeking out those opportunities for you and Nancy Walsh? Merrill Lynch. We're bullish on the future.
Kids love my ice cream. Had to take their word for it. Meet the ice cream man who couldn't eat ice cream. So you want 2 scoops or 1 scoop? Funny, huh? Same trouble digesting milk, cheese. Made my stomach nuts. Anyway, that was before dairy ease. I just chew some tablets and eat what I want. That's opened up a whole new world for me. How's it taste? Good.
Designed to run like a watch. Just strap it on.
Oh, no. Ellen, I'm knocked out.
Fetch Mommy. Fetch Mommy.
What are you doing out there?
When it's cold and rough outside, try something warm and creamy inside. Instant cream of wheat in our new honey nut flavor. Or original cream of wheat.
Tomorrow, you get the paper.
2 warm ways to come in from the cold.
Friday Forum now on the final Friday of every month, an extended look at one issue. And tonight it's hard times. As President Bush acknowledged today, the economy is sluggish, people are hurting. But beyond talk of recession, there are growing anxieties about expectations for almost every class of American worker. America is used to being an economic colossus. By the end of World War II, this country stood virtually unchallenged as the world's greatest superpower. In the 40s, America's gross national product grew by 55%, but that rapid growth could not be sustained. What has grown is the population. In 50 years, it has almost doubled. A bigger workforce, a bigger tax base, but also a much bigger demand on the country's resources. Also making big demands. The military budget. Since 1945, the country has spent more than $9 trillion on defense. Japan and Germany weren't rearming during that time. They were building powerhouse economies that now compete with our own. And Europe, which the United States helped rebuild after the war, Europe has formed an economic alliance that could become a true rival. America has lost manufacturing jobs overseas that have been replaced by jobs here in the information and service industries. And this country floated itself on a sea of red ink in the 1980s. Government deficits, corporate mergers and acquisitions, personal debt, all a financial drowning pool. To stay afloat, corporations have shed thousands upon thousands of workers. And in the new global economy, many of those jobs are gone for good. All of this leaves Americans anxious and uncertain about the future.
It worries me, yeah, because it affects me as a taxpayer. It affects me as an American.
It's pretty tight, no doubt about that.
It's hard to see what's going to happen.
We try to save here and there, but it's kind of tough these days.
Very difficult to make money today, like our parents did.
Things really, I think, are getting tougher. I know they're getting tougher.
And joining us now is political economist Robert Reich of Harvard University. He's at our Boston affiliate, WBZ-TV. Professor Reich, just how bad off is the American economy at this time?
Well, Tom, you really have to separate the recession from the long-term problems of the economy. The recession, like all business cycle phenomenon, we'll get out of it eventually, hopefully over the next year. But there's a long-term structural problem of the economy. That is, an awful lot of Americans, 3/5 of the workforce today, are earning less in inflation-adjusted terms than they earned in 1975. The top 20% of Americans are earning much more, but you see there's a kind of gap growing between the top and the bottom, depending upon how much skill you have, how much education you have. The global economy is rewarding people with skills. It's penalizing people without the skills.
Well, what happens then to the blue-collar workers who make up such a big part of our American middle class?
Well, you know, the old categories, blue-collar, white-collar, really are old categories that from 50 years ago, they don't make too much sense anymore. The factory worker, the blue-collar factory worker, only about 17% of the workforce fits into that category. But anybody who is a routine worker, who's basically unskilled, who's doing the same thing over and over and over again, is in danger. And chances are those workers are going to be put into the local service economy. Retail, restaurant, hotel, maybe hospital orderlies, taxi. These are jobs that are going to be pretty close to the minimum wage. They're not going to be jobs that are the high-wage jobs of the future world economy.
All right, Professor Reich, we want to have you stand by there as we introduce you now to two people who are on the front lines. Marilyn Carper has worked 16 years for a pharmaceutical company, but she's being laid off next week, the result of a plant closing. And Paul DeLongpre was a manager for a furniture-making business. He's been out of work for 2 months now, and his severance runs out in January. Mr. DeLongpre, let's begin with you. You were a middle-level, white-collar manager. What's been the most surprising aspect of being out of work for you?
Oh, I worked for a company for 10 years, a little family business that did very well for 10 years, had substantial growth, increased 20% a year. And 10 years ago, if you asked me when I was going to leave, I would have told you when I retired. And now, 10 years later, I'm out in the job market with lots of other people in the same position.
And Marilyn Carper, let me ask you, the company that you work for has laid off a lot of people over the past year or so. Why were you surprised at the prospect of being laid off?
Well, I just didn't think it would happen. We felt so secure with the way things were. We had just won the Excellent Award. They're very good. Their sales are high. It just, now when the economy is bad, is when people buy over-the-counter drugs. We just did not anticipate it.
Have you thought about retraining?
We have thought of retraining, but at my age, it is very difficult. I don't feel like I have the time to get back into that and waste that time. It just doesn't seem, I've been to the Workers Displacement Center. I don't find that there is anything there for someone my age.
And Mr. DeLongpre, let me ask you as well. You heard Professor Reich just a moment ago say that white-collar workers are going to be all right. You do have a degree in industrial engineering. You graduated with honors. Do you accept his forecast with confidence?
Well, if he was going on the interviews that I go on, that everybody who talks to me says, boy, it's tough now. Middle managers are being eliminated everywhere. I was told myself as a middle manager, I'm not going to have a job in 5 years. I don't think he'd feel the same way. I think the middle managers, with the participative style of management we're moving towards, are in real danger in our economy.
What about that, Professor Reich? We see an awful lot of those folks.
Well, Mr. DeLongpre is absolutely right about middle-level managers. The new corporation of the future essentially is pushing down responsibility to the lowest levels. There are fewer levels of management, and that means that even white-collar workers who are middle-level managers who have been in the job of controlling people below them are not going to have many responsibilities in the future. They will have to get retrained. Blue-collar workers, the old blue-collar workers, will also have to be retrained. Mrs. Carper is also very right. We in this society do not do a good job for our workers who are 40, 50 years old, who need retraining. Most other industrialized countries do have retraining programs, job relocation programs, all kinds of aids for people who are unemployed. We essentially let people out to pasture.
Yeah, Mrs. Carper, let me ask you about your own children. You have been able to educate your children at the university level, haven't you?
Yes, I have a son who is just about to complete elementary education. He has worked very hard, working part-time and going to school part-time, and it is just within his grasp. But with all the cuts now, the teacher jobs are fading. So when he completes this, is he going to be able to have a job? And this is the field that he is trained in. He's worked so hard to achieve this goal. It doesn't seem very real right now.
Who do you blame for all of this?
Well, I blame the government on a lot of it. I blame myself and the people for standing by and putting up with it. I think we need to all start working together We need to face the facts that we have a problem and quit denying we have a problem. You know, I keep hearing that the unemployment goes up, goes down. We can't afford to pay workman's comp anymore because of the budget. What about us? What about the American people? We count too.
Mr. DeLongpre, let me ask you, what are you advising your children, or what are you thinking about them for them now? They're, what, 7 and 10 at this time? What about their future?
Oh, my children are a little younger than that. They're 3 and 7, but we all have to make sure that they can think on their feet and that they have the ability to have broad bases of skills, and that they can have transferable skills, because that's the only way to survive in this changing society.
And very briefly, Professor Reich, do you think the political impact will be across the board come the fall of 1992?
Well, that's a short-term issue, Tom. I think that there could be if the economy doesn't pick up in terms of the recession. But there's a long-term issue here, and that is that this may be the first generation of young Americans who are not doing as well as their parents. And the American dream of upward mobility, if we don't have that dream any longer, well, then American politics, American society, American economics, everything is up for grabs.
Well, thank you all for being with us tonight. We know that this has been useful and instructive, and I'll be back with some closing thoughts in just a moment.
As we approach the 1992 Olympic Games, many are striving to be their best. They call him Iron Legs. But Richard Lowe isn't an athlete. He's a letter carrier on some of the cruelest hills in San Francisco. The 750,000 workers of the Postal Service are proud to sponsor the 1992 Olympic Games and share with you the quest to be the best.
We deliver for you.
We want to show you what an American car company can do when we put our minds to it. In 1989, this Dodge Viper was just a concept. In January, it'll be rolling off an assembly line in Detroit, Michigan. Nobody in the country ever developed a car that fast. From now on, every new car Chrysler makes is going to be built the way this one was. And that's by a team. Product and manufacturing engineers, designers, finance guys, and marketers, all working together with one idea: making a great car. And this is where they'll do it. Our new billion-dollar Chrysler Technology Center. We'll have 7,000 people here, designing, testing, hand-building prototypes. There's even a pilot factory to get it right before we produce a single car. We've been telling you about Chrysler advantages for some time now. We've changed this company to give you even higher quality cars, faster, and at lower cost. For those of us who forgot, it's called being competitive.
We gotta agree. Pizza or cheeseburger?
Domino's just what you want.
Nobody knows like Domino's.
Domino's Pizza's Bacon Cheeseburger Pizza Feast. A medium pizza piled high with ground beef, bacon, and an extra layer of cheese.
Nobody knows like Domino's.
We don't make your pizza till you make your call. So call for a Bacon Cheeseburger Pizza Feast. Now just $8.99, 2 for $12.99.
Nobody knows like Domino's. How you like pizza at home?
Picking up now on Professor Reich's point, whether this economy recovers in the short term or whether it takes longer, what we do know is that all of the old assumptions about the American dream, that the kids will do better than their parents, all of those assumptions are quickly being replaced by anxieties about who we are and where we're going at the end of what has been called the American century. That's Nightly News for this Friday. I'm Tom Brokaw. Mary Alice Williams will be here tomorrow night. I'll see you Monday.
Coming up on your 24-hour news source.
New questions tonight about city funding of urban dreams. I'm Sharon Holland. I'll have the latest developments.
Tomorrow's pheasant opener in Iowa means more than just hunting. It also means big bucks for the state's economy.
And they're already filing in out here at Blank Zoo. A lot of folks back here dressed up in their costumes. We'll have a chilly forecast for you tonight coming up in just a few minutes.
Those stories, XL workers reaching an agreement with management.
And in sports, a preview of Football Friday. All next.
Midas is coming at you with values by the truckload, announcing the biggest news to come down the road in a long time. It's Midas-sized days, and right now you can find great values on our basic brake service, featuring quality, high-tech, non-asbestos pads or shoes guaranteed. That's right, brakes installed and guaranteed. Take advantage of our value and quality and these Midas-sized days before they quietly disappear. Nobody beats Midas. Nobody.